Okay, so what does that page look like? We've got text, we've got images. What we haven't done yet, which is pretty important, is we actually want to see what's happening, right? We haven't written any of our own CSS. We've been using just what's available through Bootstrap. And so we want to see what those properties are that we're actually applying to the page. So remember, we've got rows, row, and we've got columns, 1, 2. First column is 5 columns wide, and the second one is 7 columns wide. 7 plus 5 equals 12. So let's see what that looks like in terms of actual markup here. I'm going to drop this down to the bottom so that our page doesn't narrow. Text div column-md-5 shows up as 41.6%, and column medium 7 is 58.33% wide. So that makes sense, right? What does that actually look like in terms of math? If we divide 5 by 12, we get 41.667. And if we divide 7 by 12, we get 58.3, right? 58.3. So that's what's happening, right? It makes sense. Inside of that, we've got some padding going on. If we scroll down a little bit more, we will see, let's see, in our text, we've got, okay, and these are floating left, right? We know that we use float to make things appear side by side. And what else do we have going on? We've got some padding left and padding right is applied to all of these. So all of these column definitions, including the one that we're using, column medium 5, includes these properties. Position relative, minimum height is 1 pixel, padding left is 15, padding right is 15. So that accounts for that space on the left, and if our text was long enough, we'd see it on the right as well. Same with our image. We have a 15 pixel padding on the left and 15 pixel padding on the right, but no padding on the top or the bottom of our div, which is why our images are just flush with one another. So hopefully that makes sense. Like what we're doing here is accessing these predefined styles that we're importing, right? These predefined classes and style properties. So we're going to continue down this path, and we're going to add our text in here. The text that I have loaded, or the text that I've included for the example rather, is just some basic stuff I pulled off of Wikipedia, honestly, just because we needed some text. So let's drop this in, and I'm going to do a couple of just basic style things here, which I'll explain here in a moment. An H3 tag, that's a, remember we use H1 for our main text at the top of the page. That's the highest font size in the H category of markup. It's just a text size. H3 is smaller. It goes from H1 to H6, I believe. This is just left over from like way back when HTML was first written. And then I'm going to use P tags for our paragraph text. I'm going to put word wrap on here so that this shows up a little more cleanly. And I'm going to do it for all 3 of our text sections here. Whoops, not P, but H3 and H3. And if you want to know more about the H tags, I suggest you look them up. Google W3 schools H1, and you'll get an explanation of how those all work. Again, we're going to, same with the paragraph tag. This is just a really common HTML element, especially when dealing with text. Come back over to the piece here. So, got a one sentence description of the Coney Island cyclone. Got a one sentence description of the Wonder Wheel. All of you, if you're new to New York, you should absolutely take the time to go to Coney Island this summer because it's awesome. No place like it that I've ever been. Wonder Wheel, and then that weird parachute ride, which is spooky and hasn't been open forever, I guess. For a long time. They closed it down a long time ago. Okay. So close our console window here so we can actually see our content and just. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into our style sheet and I'm going to turn off this div property just because, well, it's nice to see where the lines are in your page, where the content's breaking up, but it doesn't really make your page look very nice. I'm going to drop that out and we're going to see that our page looks kind of nice, right? This is nice. This looks good on mobile. This looks good on the iPad. And this looks good on the interwebs. We've still got this weird padding issue, right? Where our images are flush with one another. We don't really probably want that. So what's a way we can handle that? We could just add a property to row, right? So row, even though it exists in the bootstrap markup, we can add a property to it. Right? So if I define row in my style sheet, it's going to load after the bootstrap style sheet, right? So here's the style sheet we're loading externally. Here's our style sheet. This one's going to load, and then this one. I could write over it. I can add to it. I can take a property that's already defined, and I can redefine it in our style sheet. And so what I'm going to do is just add nice little, I'm going to add it as a margin. I'm going to say margin top 4 pixels. So everything that's a row will have a margin at the top of 4 pixels. I'm going to save it, and when I load my page now, there you go. Get this nice little, just this break between our images from row to row. It's just, that was bugging me a little bit. So we've got text, we've got images, we've got this responsive page grid. What else can Bootstrap do? Oh, so many things, so many things. So I'm just going to blow through a couple of examples here, and I'm not sure what we're going to do on Tuesday, but it'll probably be, we'll get into some of this a little bit more. First thing I'm going to grab is a header, because it's one of the nice things, right? Is this responsive header that we see in these examples. Where do we get that from? Well, let's go back up to the menu here for the Bootstrap page. And we've got the Getting Started page, we've got a CSS page, we've got components. Components sounds promising. I think maybe it's under here. Let's, if I look on the right, there is something called navs and something called navbar. I'm going to go to navbar, and that looks familiar. That looks like it, actually. So what is this thing, right? How do I pull this? And which one do I want if I just want to drop it in? Let's say that I wanted, let's see. Let's just say I wanted the whole kit and caboodle, right? This whole thing, all of these elements. I could grab this sample markup from our page. This is the point of documentation, by the way, is that you really shouldn't be afraid to cut and paste things into your code. In this case, I'm just going to grab the example that they have. I'm going to copy it from this nice little box here, and I'm going to go into my page, and all the way at the top, outside of the container, inside of the body tag, I'm going to just add all of this. Why not? Just see what happens. Let's just see what happens. So it's a lot of stuff, right? And I'm not sure what everything does, but I'm going to find out here in a minute when I load my page. Let's come over here, hit reload, and bam, look at that. I've got this header at the top. Where'd that come from? We didn't style any of this, right? I didn't create a div and say that it was gray, and I didn't create any buttons. I didn't style anything. All I did was just I cut and pasted some markup. But because these are pre-existing elements, or pre-existing classes, rather, within the Bootstrap framework, it's going to work on the page. Important to note, we've got a couple of things on here that are being controlled by JavaScript. Hover states, like this link changes when I hover over it. That's probably controlled with CSS, but one thing you can't do with CSS is a drop-down menu. This actually requires JavaScript, right? We're saying when this is clicked on, do this. That's a scripted action that has to happen inside of object-oriented, programming script or JavaScript. So this is loading from the bootstrap.js file, which we've included in our index page again, right? It's all the way down here at the bottom. If we were to comment this out, just to demonstrate here, so say we weren't loading the JS or the JavaScript portion of Bootstrap, I would reload this page and look at this, my drop downs don't work, right? Nothing, no buttons. Buttons wouldn't do anything. They'd change colors when you hovered over them, but other than that, nothing. Again, for demonstration purposes, let's say I were to comment out the Bootstrap CSS. What would happen? Oh my goodness, what the hell is this? This is just a weird looking page with a bunch of lists on it, right? So really not useful to us. It's really only when we are using the Bootstrap styles and the Bootstrap script that we get the results that we want. So at the top here, I've got, again, all of the stuff that, do I need a search and submit field? Not for anything that's on my page. Do I need a drop-down menu? Really, I don't really need any of this. Maybe it's nice to have like just the bar at the top. So what I can do then, with all of the stuff that I've imported, is just kind of pick and choose what I want. And most of it I'm just going to get rid of, right? So let's start at the top. We've got nav, we've got container fluid, right? Recognize that from our row structure earlier, container fluid. Div class nav bar header. We don't need these buttons, I'm going to say. So I'm just going to delete all of this, and I'm going to delete, really I'm just going to delete everything all the way down to the nav bar collapse. Sure, why not? So it's just this much more compact little thing at the top now, which will probably just be a gray bar when I get to it. Yeah, so maybe we'd like to keep the brand in there or something like that if I were to back up. But anyway, so I'm actually just going to pull this out for now, and you can play with it if you'd like. But the thing that I do want to get into, I'm actually going to have to save for, we're going to go into the fourth video here. I'll try to keep it short there, but I did want to touch just briefly on some button elements. All right.